The Last of Us Episode 1 to 9 review. In this, I will go over each episode and my thoughts on the good and bad of each, so let's get into it, shall we? The first and second episodes are both good episodes to start the series. The first episode starts off strong, with two scientists on a talk show about what is a greater threat to human life, until one starts to talk about fungus, and that they are the greatest threat, cordyceps being one of them. That if they could evolve to infect humans, the danger it would pose would be catastrophic. This really sets the tone for what is to eventually come later in the episode.
Billions of puppets with poisoned minds, permanently fixed on one unifying goal: to spread the infection to every last human alive by any means necessary. And there are no treatments for this, no preventatives, no cures. They don't exist. It's not even possible to make them.
So if that happens,
we lose.
It then moves to Joel and his family as they go about their normal lives on the day of the outbreak, mainly following his daughter, while slowly showing more and more unusual occurrences happening around her, slowly building up the tension until the night and her first encounter with her infected next-door neighbour. Joel returns with his brother and saves her life as they try to make it out of this area as their hectic struggle continues until the unfortunate death of his daughter by a soldier trying to stop anyone from leaving to contain the infection. The episode cuts to years later with Joel living in the quarantine zone, or QZ, and shows his life and those of the people living under the control of Fedra, the now de facto government. During this, you are introduced to the rebel faction against Fedra's rule, the Fireflies, a girl under their care, Ellie, and a woman living with Joel, Tess. After a trade gone wrong, Joel and Tess decide to take Ellie out of the QZ for the Fireflies as a trade for a work in car and supplies, but during this escape, they find out Ellie is infected. I really like some of the small scenes in this episode where they find a person who has died from the infection underground in an area that was cleared before to remind you that even somewhere you thought was safe is not, and the danger is ever present of the infected. So an overall good episode. Episode 2 starts before the major outbreak with the humans first learning of the infection and finding out that flour is how the fungus spread round the world. The military are hoping that scientists specialized in the fungus can cure it, only to tell them that they should bomb this whole city to stop it, as it did not contain everyone believed to be infected. It then cuts to the morning after the night before the present time, with Joel and Tess being wary of Ellie, who is infected and unsure if they should kill her or go back, but Tess talks Joel into taking Ellie the rest of the way when Ellie says the Fireflies think she is immune and can make a cure thanks to her. Joel, still skeptical, agrees and they travel to the meeting point. They move through the destroyed Boston, which looks great, and the set design overall looks fantastic. They find out a bit more about the infected and that some die in a few months, others longer, and some are still going after 20 years. Also, that there are different kinds of infected that can hear like bats but cannot see, that later come to be known as clickers. Another fact about the infected, and that they are interconnected more than people know, able to send out their tendrils underground, alerting other infected if they are attacked, to swarm the location within a couple of miles. Due to this swarm of infected they find, they are forced to take a more dangerous route into a museum to cross a roof to bypass this danger. The infected inside are seemingly dead, being all dried up, except that they find a dead body with multiple injuries, not caused by a normal infected, and they believe that a clicker is nearby and to be silent from now on. As you would expect, one does show up, but it has a friend and they get attacked by these clickers, but eventually kill them after an interesting battle, showing how this infected is different from the others. Ellie is bitten again, but seemingly fine for now as they move to the roof. Tess wants them to hurry to the Fireflies, even with a twisted ankle. They reach the area, but all is quiet. Joel scouts ahead and finds a dead Firefly. Tess rushes into the building, dragging Ellie with her, but finds that all inside are dead, as Joel believes someone from the group was infected, but went without telling the others, and they all died because of it. Tess is distraught by this and acting more erratic about the situation until eventually Ellie guesses that Tess was infected by the clicker attack earlier on. One of the infected fireflies is still alive, but once Joel kills it, it sends that signal underground, alerting the other infected they had bypassed earlier, who are now rushing to the area. Tess asks Joel to save who he can and take Ellie away as she is fine while she is starting to show symptoms of infection. She will stay and lay a trap for the infected to allow them to escape, which she succeeds in doing in her last act as a human. So another good episode was very much a Tess and Ellie centered with some world building. There seems to be a lot more connection between Tess and Ellie, but we'll see how things change between Joel and Ellie later in the series. I also liked the start, finding out how the infection spread around the world and driving home how dangerous the infection is from this specialist. Now the third episode. I see this as a waste of time. Just as we have built up the dangers of the world with the infected and should be creating a relationship between the two main characters, we get sidetracked by two gay characters who will get introduced. It follows their lives together in flashbacks until their deaths without ever interacting with our main characters together. The main characters get some supplies, a car, and leave. It takes all the tension and danger built in the previous two episodes and wastes it for no gain. On to episode 4. This episode is certainly better than the last, but not saying much when I just said you can skip it, but this one is worth watching while still having some problems. In this episode, I feel Joel makes many mistakes he should not have made as a hardened survivor, like his inability to plan a route. He would have worked all that out before randomly driving around in an area he doesn't know. He could also have taught Ellie how to drive, and it would have made sense in this world as a skill to learn, and it would have allowed him to get some sleep on the road. Another time later in the episode, Joel is caught literally asleep by two brothers who are incredibly sheltered and only ever lived in the QZ before. Joel had left a glass trap to alert him to the danger, but they easily get past it. So to me, it feels like they make Joel artificially worse than he should have been by making all these mistakes. He would not have lived very long, and being a person of such high reputation as a survivor if he was so easily caught. There was even a settee right behind them that they could have put against the door. They also wouldn't have slept where you could see them from the door. They would have slept so that you couldn't see them while looking through the door, because someone could have just shot them without ever going through the door. To me, it just seems very silly. As someone who supposedly knows the worst side of other people, to just leave himself out in the open like that. As for the rest of the episode, I thought it was okay. What drags it down mainly is the newly introduced female leader, who seems far too emotional when she kills the doctor and ignores the danger of the infected because they have more pressing issues. No, you don't. She also decides to hide this from the rest of the group. So this episode is built on these problems to force events, in my opinion. Episode 5. Built on the problems from the last episode to force events, where the three people who rebelled against Fedra seem a lot worse than them from what is ever shown, led by an absolute idiot of a woman who we met in the last episode, who would never have been the leader as she is seen to be far too emotional, as seen in the last episode, killing the possible only doctor in their community for not being able to save a dead man. Okay. In this world, special knowledge like that is incredibly important. To me, she felt like Captain Ahab. She takes everyone down in her ship, seeking revenge against her brother's killer.
Oh, I'm sorry. How long do you think we should wait? Should we wait a day or two? Should we wait a week? Oh, fuck it. Let's give him a month.
I'm not saying we do nothing. We already got a perimeter around the city. We can wait him out. Door to door, take a lot of men, and there are other things that probably...
He's not my 7th priority, Perry. Is that what he is to you?
Ignoring real threats of the infected, making stupid or no decisions in critical moments, in fact just standing there like an idiot while people die around her. The second in command actually seems like he would have been the leader, and my biggest complaint in this episode would have been gone. But that would have meant that lots of parts of the episode would have had to have been changed. But I think these would have been changes for the better. As if she had literally done nothing, everyone would have been far better off. Anyway, Joel is asked by two kids who got the jump on him to help them leave the city, and also now being hunted for killing his attackers in the last episode. The brothers want to use the underground tunnels, which just so happens to be where all the infected in the city have somehow been forced to go into, which is never actually explained how they did this, but the older brother says it's safe from his intel from Fedra. But as seen in the last episode, it's not. So they make their way underground and ignore Joel once again. I know they are kids, but they asked him to lead and they would follow his instructions. Also, they would have been taught the dangers of the infected. The monsters in this world are real. I will say the building relationship between Ellie and the brothers in this episode and during these parts is well done, while Joel is just kind of there at the side. So skipping to later, a minor fight begins when the leader shows up with the others under her command. One of the vehicles crash into a house to the side of the road. This vehicle begins to sink into one of the underground tunnels, alerting the infected down there and releasing them to the surface. But, and here's the thing, the infected announce their presence before they come out of the hole. Not by much, but still enough for the fighters to have moved back and possibly into their cars to move away while attacking the infected and giving themselves more space to fight. But this doesn't happen. It's certainly an interesting action scene, but those in it are acting rather stupid. The clickers don't act like they are shown in episode 2, following the loudest sound from the gunshots, the cars, people screaming, and one goes after Ellie when she is being quiet in a car. But I will say the infected look great, and so does the new type that shows up. It also has a good touch of an infected that is deaf, not noticing anyone in the room until they are touched. I will once again say, why does Ellie not tell Joel that someone has been infected? No matter the reason, to me, it just feels stupid after everything they've gone through to just ignore it. To episode 6, 3 months later. Skipping all the development of the two characters' relationships growth, but we get told in this episode how close they are now, so much so Joel gets panic attacks from fear of losing her. Really? Come on. Also, Ellie stealing a rabbit from two innocent people in the countryside who just help them even when Joel tells her not to, but he just lets it go. I personally did not like this. We get a scene of Joel falling asleep when on watch, so Ellie takes over. There is no need for this, as they would rotate watch, especially after all this time. Joel cannot stay awake forever, so Ellie has to take the watch sometime. So they make their way and find Joel's brother, Tommy. He is in a commune kind of thing, as they call it. He is now happily living with his new family. They have a silly line in this episode about Ellie, that people have not seen girls like her there. What, a rude, abrasive thief who swears a lot? Not sure. Joel asks Tommy to take Ellie to find the Fireflies, as he is afraid of losing his edge, and she is the cause of his panic attacks. Joel does not feel like the character from episode 2, and there have not really been situations that would change this for me. Anyway, just feels like they wanted to create conflict between Joel and Ellie in this episode. Also of note is a weird bit where Tommy's wife gives Ellie contraceptives on the first day there. Hello, nice to meet you. If you want to get it on, here you go. Very strange for Ellie, who is supposed to be a child. We do get a bonding moment later when Joel shows her how to use a rifle, as he takes her to find the Fireflies, but they have all left. They search the area and find a map, which shows where they most likely have gone. While there, some scavengers turn up, making Joel and Ellie run back to their horse. Another problem that turns up in this episode that would not have happened is Joel getting jumped in the open with his back turned. Ellie or Joel, after all this time, would have been covering each other, so this would not have happened. It's just there so he can be injured for the next episodes. We begin episode 7 picking straight up from 6 with Ellie trying to take care of Joel, but Joel telling her to leave him and to go back to Tommy. As she is about to leave, we get the main part of the episode, a flashback to Ellie living in the QZ in Fedra's school. Now, while I will say it adds to Ellie's character a little bit, and makes more sense than episode 3, it's far too long, with almost all the episode spent in this flashback. And later in the season, they even go over the events in this episode, so it's kind of redundant. The episode is all about Ellie and her friend, who have joined the Fireflies and the fun night out getting infected. Once again, the problem I have is with the people in this series seeming lack of care to the dangers of the infected, even in places where they are believed to be. You would be quiet, not making excessive noise, checking the rooms before going in, that sort of thing. Nope. This would be taught to them in school, the dangers of this new world. They could have also used this episode to talk about Fedra versus the Fireflies, philosophical questions about who was right and wrong, but this just stays at the surface level. Beyond that, nothing. You could honestly skip this episode and miss nothing. Ends with Ellie stitching Joel's wound instead of leaving. So, skipping episode 7, episode 6 leads straight into 8. It's a much better episode, even though it's built on the problems of 6, with Joel being injured the way he was. This is the best since the first 2 episodes. It has an interesting story, but I would say it's far too rushed to work as well as it could have. Some of episode 7, or all of it, should have been used as a build-up to the story and the group of humans she meets. Then when Ellie meets them, more of a relationship could have been formed, even possibly one of respect. Then the later events would hit much harder and more hints could have been slowly shown that they were hiding a dark secret to survive. Joel does have some good scenes when he is fighting to survive, as this group is connected to the man he killed in episode 6 and who injured him. But not so sure he would have recovered from his injuries so quick. I will also say in the last fight, when the building is on fire, the leader of the group has a chance to put it out at the start but leaves it for no reason. And also he says Ellie has no way to get out, but there's many windows that she could smash, even if the door's locked. It is also mentioned in this episode that Ellie cannot survive on her own, but in this episode, she is shown doing just that. They also add a line of her being a leader. It was mentioned in episode 7, but she is far more of a lone wolf, doing things on her own. But these are far more minor issues in an overall good episode compared to the others in this season. Episode 9, one word sums it up for me: rushed. It starts with how Ellie is immune to the infection. Her pregnant mother was attacked just before she was born, so becoming infected through her. Marlene, a friend to the mother, turns up and takes Ellie away, but the mother tells her she was infected after Ellie was born. It then cuts to present day, and Ellie comes to the realization that the journey together with Joel is almost over, as she contemplates everything they have been through, while Joel, on the other hand, is looking forward to teaching her new things and getting to know each other more. We get a scene with giraffes to show the beauty and the calm in this world of horror, except the world is so empty with so few horrors shown, it has less impact than it could have. During this, Joel also tells Ellie there is no need to go through with this. We could go back, but after everything she has been through, she wants to see it to the end. Joel later tells Ellie that he tried to kill himself after the death of his daughter, but flinched at the last second, as we get Joel opening up to Ellie, and that she healed his wound from his daughter, not time. From this, I would have guessed that Tommy and family was the reason he flinched, and Tommy's importance is just kind of ignored. They let their guard down in a city of infected and are knocked out by fireflies. Joel then wakes up in a hospital bed. The Firefly leader, Marlene, thanks Joel for bringing Ellie to them and that he may now go. Joel wishes to see Ellie, but she tells him that will not be possible and that she is being prepped for surgery as the cordyceps lives in the brain, and to harvest what they need to make a cure will kill her. Joel, obviously upset by this, does not want to allow this to happen, but is forced to leave under armed escort or die. As he is leaving, Joel overpowers the guard and goes on a killing spree with ease, suddenly turned into a Terminator or video game character, not really in line with what we've seen from him from the rest of the season, and makes the events at the end of episode 6 look forced. If he was really this deadly, he could have just killed all 4 of them and just kept on going. He even kills the doctor about to work on Ellie. Hint hint for season 2. Joel then makes his way to the parking lot with the unconscious Ellie. Marlene gets the jump on him and should have killed him after his massacre, but decides to have a chat with him to talk him round to her way of thinking. Joel says no and shoots her, which anyone with any sort of sense would have been able to guess. He puts Ellie in the car and goes back to finish her off. Ellie wakes up as Joel is driving the car back to where Tommy is. He then lies to her about everything that has happened, just like the Fireflies lied to her earlier, neither allowing her to make her own decision or telling her the truth. Joel says that they didn't need her and that there were multiple people who were immune. It doesn't work and they have given up on the cure. That raiders attacked the hospital and he barely got her out alive. Joel now treats Ellie like his own daughter, even comparing the two and talking about the future, while Ellie wonders what everything she has been through was for. Ellie later makes Joel swear if everything he told her was the truth, just before they reach the town where Tommy lives. Joel swears on it. The end. So, I liked how they gave you the answer to why she was immune. The sets look great and have throughout the whole thing. The acting is good, but it just needed more time and the world felt empty to me. It's far too rushed in the relationship between Joel and Ellie. This is most likely because I never got invested in Ellie. I did like Ellie more in this episode though, with the character moments they had given us in this episode, but by now it should have been there. This should have been the grand finale. The biggest problem with this episode, there was no need to work on Ellie instantly, which then would have mean the fight wouldn't have happened. So the whole part just feels forced. They would have checked everything first before cutting her open, if she is the only one who is immune. It's just lunacy. You would want to see if she could pass this immunity onto a child first, for one, and there's also a procedure called a brain biopsy, which would have got what they wanted without killing her. It just doesn't make sense. Hope you enjoyed the video, and see you in the next one.